So there have been a lot of new people joining into Twisted lately, so I thought I probably should make an updated version of my beginner's guide, since the last one is kind of outdated since there's been a couple major updates since then. So let's quit wasting time and get right into it. So I wanted to start off with a very important part of the game that you should always be starting right off with, which is the Vehicles tab. And first, you're going to want to go into the dealership. Once you are into the dealership menu, there is a free car that you can get under Chevrolet. The Chevrolet 454 SS is a free vehicle. It will not look like this once you first get it, but you can easily make it look like this with a low amount of money. Now, once you have claimed the vehicle, you can go into the garage menu, and then you can purchase a Mesonet or a lift kit. I recommend purchasing the Mesonet first, since the Mesonet will help you gain cash a lot faster. And then once you save enough money up, you can get a lift kit, which will make it so you can drive much faster on dirt roads. Now this is optional, you don't have to do this, but there is a color palette here, and then if you buy the custom color Game Pass, you can customize your color, but I'll get into more of that later. Now once you've gotten the 454 SS, there is two vehicle paths that you can go down. You can go the paved road path or the dirt road path. For the paved road path, you're probably going to want to get either the Subaru Forester for $6,000 or the Honda Civic for $7,400. Neither of these vehicles can get a lift kit, but they're very fast for paved road speeds, and they're both very inexpensive. You can easily save up for both of these vehicles within your first day of playing Twisted. Now once you've got these vehicles, you're set for a while, but once you get up to, I forget the exact cash limit, it's $41,000, but you are going to want to get the Dodge Charger next, which is the fastest vehicle in total in the game, doing 125 miles an hour on the road. But beware, when you get these vehicles, you must know that none of these vehicles are fast on dirt roads at all. And if you choose to take the off-road path, you can choose the Dodge Ram 3500 from 1995. If this vehicle looks familiar, this is because this vehicle is the vehicle that is used in the movie Twister. Well, one of them anyway. But it is $19,000. It's going to take you a little while to save up for it, but you do have the option to skip it if you feel like it. If you get a lift kit for this vehicle, it can go up to 81 miles an hour off-road, and it does 100 miles an hour on-road. It costs $19,000, but it is definitely worth it because you can get a lot of cash with this fast, because it does also hold 3 probes. But I'll talk about probes a little bit more later. And now after that, you have a choice of either getting the Ford F-150 or the Chevrolet Silverado. Both of these vehicles have the exact same stats of driving 105 miles an hour on paved roads and 85 miles an hour off-roads, being the fastest off-road vehicles in the game. Now, it's up to you for your preference at this point, but just know that the Ford F-150 is $1,000 cheaper. However, you can easily make $1,000 in just one Intercept. That is, if the Tornado is a good power level. You also have the choice of the Toyota Tundra, but this is not the fastest vehicle in the game. For dirt roads, I believe it is slightly slower, but it is much cheaper at $27,000. And now that we've talked mainly about the vehicles, we can go on to the section where we can tell you how to earn money. Earning money in Twisted is quite simple. To start off, these things are called probes. To buy them, you can go to the Chaser warehouse, go to the probes section down here, and then you can choose from one probe that you want. However, when you do purchase a probe, it will not directly put it into your inventory. You're going to have to specifically choose which vehicle you would like to put your probes in. Now, every probe is $150, except for the Dorothy probe, which is $1,000. The only con about this orange probe, though, is while it costs $750 just like these two probes, the orange probe might look really cool, but it does not have a probe camera like these three do. If you do wish to get cinematic shots from any probe cameras, then this is not the probe for you. Now, what these probes do is if you place them in the path of the tornado and they successfully go into the tornado, they will make you a specific amount of money depending on how strong the tornado is. However, you must know that these will only start to give you cash if the tornado is over 65 miles an hour. Now, that doesn't mean that the tornado itself has to be over 65 miles an hour. It just means that the anemometers on each probe has to be reading at least 65 miles an hour for you to start gaining cash. And the higher wind speeds are, the higher chance you have of earning more cash. However, don't worry, these probes are quite durable as it takes a high amount of intercepts for them to actually break and go out of your inventory before you have to buy new ones. And I feel like this is a pretty good deal since they're only $750 each. However, you are going to have a pretty difficult time getting intercepts or any tornadoes if you don't really know how the thermodynamics work. Now, the thermodynamics in Twisted are very easy to understand, especially since in the most recent major update, you can see a 3-day outlook. So let's start with this area. Currently, the forecast is 3,400 Cape, 81% humidity, 77 lapse rates, 77 dew point, and 83 temperature. Now, this is in Fahrenheit for dew point and temperature. If you guys are not from the United States, you can change it to the metric system, and then it will rate you Celsius instead of Fahrenheit. But since I'm from the United States, I'm going to be doing everything in Fahrenheit. So this is going to be a pretty mediocre day. Now, you could probably assume that since everything is in the orange, you need to know the difference between a TSTM risk, a high risk, and every risk in between. Now, first off, here's a list of how everything goes, starting at TSTM being the weakest, going up to marginal, then to slight, then to enhanced, then to moderate, then to high. Now, a TSTM risk is going to be a fairly terrible day for getting any type of strong tornadoes, which are the best kind for making money. If you ever see a TSTM and that is happening currently, and there is only worse risks in the near future, such as a slight risk, a marginal risk, or a TSTM risk, then you should probably try to find a different server. Now, reading the thermodynamics, for temperature, you're probably going to want anything 95 Fahrenheit and above to get a very strong tornado. Now, with dew point, you're just going to want that to be always as close to max as possible, and maximum dew point is 85 Fahrenheit. Lapse rates, anywhere 9 and above, you should probably be set. However, you should know that this max at 10, and I forgot to mention, but temperature max is at 105. I think it might be 107 now. Humidity, you want to be as low as possible, because the lower the humidity, the easier everything is to see. And as far as Cape goes, you should know that if it's in the red, it's probably good, but Cape is something else. A lot of people in the Twisted community don't even fully know how the Cape system works, because it clearly isn't higher is better. There's some sweet spots, some bad spots, and then areas in between. But some of the best experiences I've had with Cape is anywhere near 6,300, 5,500, 6,900, and 7,200. Now, 6,900 and 7,200 Cape is extremely difficult to come across. I play Twisted all the time, and I would consider myself a Twisted expert, and I've only came across 3 7,000 Cape plus risks. But just know that the higher the risk, the more rare it is, and the lower the risks are probably pretty rare too. So, sweet spot for starting off is probably going to be somewhere near enhanced or moderate risks. And now in this top menu, it tells you the 3-day outlook. Day 1, which will be the day that is currently happening. For me, currently, that is enhanced. Day 2 is whatever in-game tomorrow will be, which for me, that is high. And day 3 is going to be 2 days ahead of time, which for me is marginal. And right here is a refresh button. You can press this, and the thermodynamics current will change. Well, that is, if it actually is changing. If you have still thermodynamics like during the midday or midnight, then this is not going to make a difference. But by far the most important part about this thermodynamics tab is the wind direction. The wind direction is the most important because it will tell you what direction storms will be moving through the day. For example, I'm currently under a southeast server, meaning if a storm spawns up here in the northwest corner of the map, then it will move towards the entire map. But if it's on a southeast and it starts down here in the southeast, then you should probably not chase that, as that's going to go off the map pretty quick. Now, it does occur that there are often more than one storm on the map. The way to tell the better storm to chase is the position of the storm. You can see tornado warning boxes, and if the box's wider end is facing towards the edge of the map, then don't chase it. You want to chase a storm which is headed for the most open area. I say open area by area on the map. Open area does not mean like somewhere where there isn't a lot of towns. But I feel like I explained that pretty well, maybe even a little bit too much, so we're going to get on to the actual part where you will be chasing storms. So while you are chasing storms, it may take a little while to actually get to your storm. But luckily, you can go as fast as you want and you don't have to stop for anything, as there are no traffic laws in Twisted, and you cannot simulate vehicle collisions. Which basically means you just can't get in car crashes. You'll just drive right through the other vehicle. So when a storm forms, it will always look like this cloud shape. It will never look like any other cloud shape you would see. I would show you, but there's literally no clouds for me to give you an example of. Now, on a northeast server, the hook of the storm would probably form somewhere in this area. But on a southeast motion storm, the hook would probably form somewhere up here. A hook signifies an area where there is rotation, and it often looks like the shape of a hook. So this is really important, where you have to remember the wind direction of the day. Because since this storm is moving southeast and the hook is going to form up here, I'm going to want to get in the path somewhere in this general area. And there's always this menu down here where you can see the speed you're going, the amount of gas you have, the mesonote wind speeds. You can lock your vehicle, you can set your cruise control, you can turn your lights on and off. This is your park brake. This is probably the most useless one out of them all, but it can be used sometimes, like if you were trying to survive a lower wind speeds tornado in a civilian vehicle. Which, by the way, this is probably important to note, all civilian vehicles get lifted at 95 miles an hour wind speeds. And then this button right here is a flip button, so if you ever get your vehicle tipped over or in a sticky spot where you can't really get out, you can use this and your vehicle will flip itself over. Now, radar is very important because this is where you can get these warnings. This right here is a severe thunderstorm warning, which is box will be yellow. This is usually where a hail core will be, because as of right now in Twisted, there isn't really much other severe thunderstorm besides tornadoes, rain, and hail. So the severe thunderstorms warning will mainly take place wherever a hail core will be. And these are called tornado vortex signature icons, or better known as a TVS. This is just a mesocyclone, or a rotation indication, meaning that there is rotation there. You can see that there is cyclonic rotation right here headed down for Mizpah, because the tornado warning does a good job of accurately telling you where it will go. And now, if a tornado is to touch down, and you happen to be in the path of it, that isn't necessarily a bad thing, because you have a decent chance to make money. So say this is to drop a tornado, I would place my probe in the path of it, and get out as fast as I possibly can. And whenever a tornado is about to touch down, a storm will most of the time develop a rain wrap, but if there is no rain wrap on the storm, you can always see by the dust cloud on the ground. Now, normally there is a funnel. This is just a storm that is being very annoying, and it has to have a hovering tornado in it. And if ever there is a tornado warning over a town, it will sound the tornado sirens. And tornado sirens can sometimes be very loud and other times be very quiet. This happens to be a more quiet tornado siren since we are in a smaller town. But if you're in a town like Hibbing, Hazleton, or Wadena, the tornado sirens will likely be very loud since you are in a large town which is highly populated. So since I think I've covered storm chasing pretty well, we're going to move on to the game passes, as this is one of the most important aspects of the game. Now, I own every game pass in Twisted, but some of them I have very little experience with. But since I do own every Game Pass, it will help a lot to tell you what each Game Pass does. Now let's start by looking at the Game Passes. Infinite Fuel is very self-explanatory. If you have this Game Pass and it is activated in the settings, then your vehicle will have infinite fuel and you will not have to fill up at gas stations anymore. It is a very helpful Game Pass, and I definitely rank it pretty high. 2 times income is basically what it says in the title as well, because whenever you are intercepting a tornado or doing any deed such as cutting a tree with a chainsaw or doing any job for the National Weather Service, then you will get twice as much cash than you would previously. The starter pack is only necessary if you're just starting out in Twisted. It's 150 Robux, so it's very affordable, and it will start you off with an extra $10,000 and will give you a Ford Expedition XLT with a Mesonet already equipped. So it is very easy to start off. If you have this Game Pass, it will definitely give you an income boost, so I'd say it's probably worth it. Custom vehicle color is more of a visual thing. It's also pretty self-explanatory. You can go into the dealership, go into the garage, and then you can change the color of your vehicle with these 3 sliders. Now you can make it literally any color you want, like this lime green, this yellow. You can even make it white or black. Now each of these colors represents a different tone. The first one is red, second one is green, and the last one is blue. Kind of like how RGB lighting works. Now the chainsaw is, obviously, it's a chainsaw, but if there is down trees anywhere in a road, then you can go up to the tree, left click, or use whatever your dominant use button is, and then it will chop up the tree and remove it from the road. You also get a little bit of cash with each tree. The Skywarn Spotter Plat is very cool, but effectively useless at the same time. You can report different size hail, different damage indications, and different types of tornadoes. But you get no economic gain from this, and it only is really effective in public servers to help the National Weather Service people. Speaking of the National Weather Service Game Pass is the most expensive Game Pass, but definitely the best. With this Game Pass, you can get access to the National Weather Service building in Hazleton. Now what you can do is go into the basement and issue tornado warnings on a storm. You can also issue severe thunderstorm warnings, but that is kind of useless as nobody really pays attention to those. If I were you in the National Weather Service, then I would mainly focus on tornado warnings. The other ability you get is if there is ever a hit town, you can go up to different buildings that have been hit and then press E to assess damage, and you can assess it realistically depending what the damage is. However, the best way to do it really is to start from the bottom of the list and keep clicking and going up the list until one of them actually works. Because if it is incorrect, it will highlight red. Now the next Game Pass is the Drones Game Pass. It's a really good Game Pass because you can fly your drone to get cinematic shots in the air, and it's easy to see tornadoes if you're behind a hill or something like that. However, if you are a YouTuber or anyone who likes to create videos for any platform, the Drones Game Pass is definitely the #1 Game Pass for you. It costs 350 Robux, but you can get any aerial shot, and you can get any cinematic footage in any location possible. Except you can't go too high and you can't go too far from the spot where your actual character is, because there is a signal bar here, and when that gets too low, your screen will start to go staticky and you will eventually lose signal from the drone entirely. Next up, we have the Fire and EMS Game Pass, which to activate, you will have to go into this role section, click on Emergency Services, and then your name in the player list will highlight red. Once you have done this, you gain access to the EMS shop and the vehicles page. You can have access to an ambulance, a fire truck, and a brush truck. The brush truck tops out at 100 miles an hour and basically acts as a regular civilian vehicle other than that, and of course it has lights and sirens. The ambulance is basically the same, however it is a little bit slower acceleration, so I would probably not recommend. And lastly, the fire truck is probably a terrible option for you because it is tied for the lowest top speed in the game, and it is a very large vehicle, making it very easy to get picked up. It also has a very slow acceleration. You can also select the county, which basically just tells you which color it is. Beltrami County is red, Cherokee County is yellow, and Wadena County is blue. And then the rest of the game passes are not really game passes, but more donations and cash. Each donation does absolutely nothing except help the developers get some cash to help make the game better. However, you can only buy each donation one time. As it says, you will already own this item, your account has not been charged. If you try to press a donation you already own. The donations I own are the EF1 donation, which is 50 Robux, and the EF5 donation, which is 500 Robux. And everything else is just you being able to purchase in-game cash with Robux, smallest amount being 1,000 for 20 Robux, and largest amount being 100,000 for 900 Robux. And now we'll move on to probably one of the most important parts of the game, the Chaser Warehouse. Now the Chaser Warehouse is essentially the same as the vehicle dealership, except this is where you get all the cooler Chaser vehicles. Now starting off, we have a vehicle that's a little bit nicer to your bank account, which is the Discovery Support Vehicle. It is essentially just a Chevrolet Tahoe, except it has room for 3 probes, and it drives 100 miles an hour. It gets picked up at 95 miles an hour, just like every other vehicle, but it's a very cheap vehicle that can hold a lot of probes. And it looks more professional while you're out in the field as well. Next up, we have the Vortex 2 probe truck, which essentially has a really good mesonet. Although it has no actual advantages, it just looks cool. But the perk of this vehicle is it's very affordable, and it can hold 4 probes, which is the most of the game. So this vehicle is going to be really efficient for cash if you do not have a deployable vehicle yet. This is definitely one of the best financial options you can make in the game, especially since it only costs $40,000. Next up, we have the Doghouse, which is basically a standard pickup truck, except it has a 1 Pro, which is the camera seat. Now, this is only really effective if you're trying to get maybe like a shot of some vehicles driving along. This is one of the most useless vehicles in the game, and it's pretty expensive too at $85,000, so I'd recommend this to only be a purchase if you're going to get every vehicle in the game. Next up, we have the Dominator 1. The Dominator 1 holds 2 probes just like the standard vehicle in the game, but the pro about the Dominator 1 is it has a feature where you can deploy the vehicle and it will be safe until a certain wind threshold. The Dominator 1 is one of the better storm chasing vehicles in the game, as it is one of the only vehicles that you can actually deploy in, but you do by clicking this button down here right next to the minimap. And then the vehicle will lower its suspension so it will not get lifted as easy in front of tornadoes. Now, undeployed, with the Dominator 1, you are safe up until 130 miles an hour instead of 95. However, if you're deployed, you're good until 170 miles an hour. So this vehicle is one of the stronger vehicles in the game, and I'd say it is definitely worth your money. However, it is $100,000, so it might take a little bit of grinding before you can actually unlock it. Now, compared to the Dominator 1, the TIV 1 has a couple pros and cons. It holds 2 probes as well, but it will get lifted easier. With it being deployed, it will lift at 170 miles an hour, just like the Dominator 1, but being undeployed, it will lift at 125 instead of 130. And another main problem is with the TIV 1 is that it takes so much longer to actually deploy. You saw when I deployed the Dominator 1, it took about 2 seconds. However, with the TIV 1, it's going to take you near 10 seconds. As you can see, it has a much slower deployment system. However, some pros to the TIV 1 is you can get in the IMAX seat, and down here you'll have these 2 buttons, the hatch, which will just open the hatch of the IMAX seat, and then you can click IMAX so you can see the IMAX camera, and then you can press D and A, or whatever you use to turn on whatever console/device you are using. The IMAX seat is basically just for filming purposes. However, if you do it right, you can get some really good shots with the TIV 1 IMAX seat. Now, my personal favorite out of the vehicles is the Dominator 2. Just like the other ones, it holds 2 probes, and similar to the Dominator 1, it has a 2-second deploy time. However, instead of getting lifted when it's deployed at 170 miles an hour, it gets lifted at 185 miles an hour. But, however, this is my personal favorite of the group of all of the Chaser Warehouse vehicles, simply because of how it looks. I just really love how this vehicle looks, and it's a good mid-ground for all the Chaser vehicles as well, because it is a big boost from the Dominator 1 and Tib 1, yet it only costs $50,000 more. Now next up we have the Dominator 3. The Dominator 3 is nothing but pros and one con compared to the Dominator 1 and 2. The pros of it being the deploy time is faster, taking 1 second to deploy. This is the fastest deploying vehicle in the entire game, and it will get lifted at 200 miles an hour deployed. What makes the Dominator 3 so good is it being able to survive such strong tornadoes and having a deploy time of only that long. Now the TIV 2 is similar to all the other chaser vehicles, but you may notice that it also has an IMAX seat, and this vehicle can survive up to 220 miles an hour winds, making it the strongest vehicle in the game. The only con about the TIV 2 is its incredibly long deploy time of 30 seconds. And on top of that incredibly long deploy time, it is incredibly loud and annoying while you're doing it as well. Now there is one more vehicle in the Chaser warehouse, but it is such a complex vehicle that I might as well just give it its own topic. Now, like all the other vehicles, the Doppler on wheels has its pros and cons. The pros of the Doppler on wheels is it being really easy to record accurate wind speeds and its ability to make cash extremely easily. Now, the only cons about the Doppler on wheels is it's really annoying to get accurate readings because you have to be close to the tornado and you can't have any hills or heavily wooded areas in between you and the tornado. Another con is how it is very large, which makes it easier to get picked up, and it is very slow, which makes it very difficult to run from tornadoes. And its final con is its extreme price of $650,000, making it the most expensive vehicle in the game. As for how to use the Doppler, you're going to want to deploy the vehicle first, and then you're going to want to activate the dish. However, I do want you to know that activating the dish will make it so the radar can update faster. As you can see here, it's updating every 5 seconds. If there is no Doppler on wheels active in the server, then it will update every 10 seconds instead. Having a Doppler in the server also makes the tornado vortex signature icons much more accurate. For example, this TVS is exactly where it says it should be. Without a Doppler on wheels activated, then this could be over here, or even over here. And it also shows the accurate color, because you can see that a TVS can often jump from yellow to pink very easily, but this is not really what's happening, as the radar is just being extremely inaccurate. But if you want to get accurate readings of a tornado, make sure that the tornado is near you. For example, if we are right here, the tornado has to be somewhere in this general area of the map, anywhere from Sneed to Andrusia to 10 Killer. However, the further away it is, the more inaccurate the readings are going to be. So the closer you are, the more accurate it's going to be. But be careful, don't get too close, as you probably are going to get lifted. But if the tornado's way down here by Wanaska, don't bother trying to record it, because you're going to get an out of range scan. And we'll just read the highest wind speeds in the area, often reading around 0 to 20 miles an hour. Now, to actually see the scan wind speeds, inside the Doppler, you must get in the furthest back seat. Now, you see down here, it will say scan blocked, but don't fret about that. It will say scan blocked if there is something wrong with the scan in between the tornado, or if it is too far away. If you see it pop up just one time, just wait it out and see if it'll change. However, if you're getting a reoccurring scan block like I am, then that most likely means that you're going to have to reposition. Now, I think I've talked enough about the Doppler. Now we should be good to move on to how to successfully intercept tornadoes. Intercepting is a pretty simple topic. For example, say there's a tornado headed our way and we want to intercept it. Well, first off, you have to tell if it's actually headed your way. The best way to tell is to look at the tornado while you're standing still to see if there is any left to right motion in the tornado. Now, I shouldn't say left to right, I should say left or right, because, well, just basically look for any side to side motion. Now, if the tornado is swaying back and forth, that probably means it's headed your way, as tornadoes tend to do that a lot, especially if they're drill bit funnels. But if you see no left or right motion at all, that probably means the tornado is headed right for you. At that point, what you can do is deploy your vehicle and put a probe out. Now, if there is left or right motion in a tornado, you're probably going to have to move yourself. Now, a big thing I don't see people do a lot is choosing their vehicle based on the storm day. So, for example, this is a high-risk day. I would either go for the Dominator 3, which I've done, or go for the Tiv 2. I would probably do the same thing on a moderate. But if it's an enhanced risk or lower, I'd probably go for a Dominator 2, Dominator 1, or Tiv 1, since those vehicles have much faster deploy times. Now, you're only really going to want to use the Tiv 2 if the tornado is large and moving slow. It takes a very talented interceptor to intercept a tornado other than that in a Tiv 2. If the tornado is kind of far away and it's moving pretty slowly, I would definitely wait to deploy until it's a little bit closer, because you can reposition if you require to at that point. But as I said earlier, you should probably only use the Tiv 2 on a large wedge tornado. Dominator 3, you could probably intercept literally anything as long as it's not crazy strong. Dominator 2, I'd go with that on your average chase day. Dominator 1, you could probably go with that too. Tiv 1, I would only go for on the lower risk days where you just really need to make some money. Also remember, if you don't like the vehicle you're in, you can easily just go to the chaser warehouse and switch your vehicle. So now let's probably get on to one of the more important topics for playing multiplayer or creating content, is damage assessment. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions I see is everyone thinking that any building that is full slabbed is an EF5. But I'm really just going to cover the topics of EF5s because no one really needs to know if a building is EF1, 2, 3, or 4 unless you have the National Weather Service Game Pass, in which you use to rate damage. So what I am going to do instead is just cover what every building fully slabs at as far as the EF level. Now let's start with these big buildings. Let's start with the smallest big building. Now if the smallest big building is down to its first floor and has the ceiling removed, that will be EF5 damage for this building. And it doesn't matter the color. The blue one, the yellow one, and even that brown one over there, it's all the same. Now I believe this building, I've never really seen a tornado strong enough to actually do it, so I'm not completely sure on this. Someone might have to fact check me. But as far as I know, with this building and the tallest buildings, the first 3 floors being completely gone should be EF5 damage. Now it might be the 4th one, I'm not sure. But I know it takes a significant tornado to actually fully give EF5 damage to one of these buildings. Now a small coffee shop building like this should probably slab at around EF3, EF4. And now a slab is a fully, completely washed away, like from the foundations type building. The building will just be removed and the slab will just be on the floor. Like even these little floor tiles here, or whatever they are, won't be there. It'll just be a full concrete slab. And I believe that is the same case with that building right there. Well, I believe the maximum damage that a billboard can receive is at EF4 damage. And these water towers, I believe the larger version of the water towers slab at EF4 damage, and there's a smaller version of water towers in other towns that is just a gray little farm type water tower. I believe those slab at either EF2 or EF3. I believe both of these buildings should slab at EF4 or EF3. Now, a Dubia Donuts should be a full slab at EF3, and this goes the same for Siryzm buildings, as the Siryzm buildings are very similar structure, a lot of windows, and not great structural integrity, mainly made to look good. Now, Wilmar is the only named building to slab at EF5, but it takes an absolute full slab for this building to be at EF5. If it's almost a slab, but not quite a slab, then that's only EF4 damage, or EF3 damage. To get Wilmar down to EF5 damage, it takes a full, complete slab of the building. Now, I believe all gas stations should slab at 167 miles an hour, which is EF4 damage. Now, one of the most important entire topics, though, is the houses. There are lower bound houses, expected houses, and upper bound houses. Lower bound houses slab at 165 miles an hour, making them an EF3. Expected houses slab at 200 miles an hour, making them EF4. And upper bound houses slab at 220 miles an hour, making them EF5. Now, there are two types of lower bound houses in the game, this being one of them. Do not confuse this with the EXP houses that look very similar to this. This is just a plain house. The EXP houses that look similar to this will have a backyard and a garage. The very plain house is a lower bound though. And this is the other type of lower bound house. It's a very simple family house that is 2 stories tall, has no garage, and very weak structural integrity to the building. Now we move on to expected houses, and there are 2 types. This being one of them, it is a 1-story home with a backyard and it has a garage. Most of them are gray, but I do believe that they can come in another color as well. You can find these houses in anywhere Metropolis-like, such as Wadena, Hazleton, Chandler, Hibbing, Tenkiller, and Welchenville. Now the other expected home is a 2-story house with a garage, and it has a more modern look to it. You can see these in many areas around the map, Wadena being one of them. You can also find them in Chandler, Badora, Welchenville, Waukesha, Hazleton, Hiram, Starbuck, Hibbing. Now, there are 2 types of upper bound houses, but they were both very distinct and easy to tell apart from other houses, especially since they're not found in many locations across the map. One of the types of upper bound houses is this. I feel like this is the larger one of the 2, but I'm not really sure on that. I might have to be fact checked. This is the more common upper bound house though, and you will find this wherever there are upper bound homes except for Hazleton. Now I believe I do know every location on the map of where these houses may be. You should find some right here north of Wadena. These 2 driveways up here next to Hiram should both be this type of upper bound home. There should be one right here to the southeast of Hibbing, and the last one should be right here south of Wanaska. And this is the other kind of upper bound house. This is definitely the smaller version of the 2, and it can only be found in this area in Hazleton, and there are 3 of them around. This being one of them, another one is right next to it, and then a third one is right there. And now, since this is a perfect time, since there is a mess here, I'm gonna show you how to use a radar. Now, first off, there's a legend down here that you can see everything, but I'm going to explain it. Blue is light rain, the green is moderate rain, the yellow is heavy rain, the orange is very heavy rain, and the red is intense rain. Now, hail can be shown in colors pink, purple, and white. However, there's the occasional debris bulb, which will show hail colors since the radar doesn't really know how to depict the difference between solid hail and solid debris in the air. But if you see a TVS icon wherever there is a color that seems that it might be a hail core, just know it's probably not hail, it's probably debris. And if there is a hail core, there will be this triangle here that is completely filled in that will show you that is a hail core. And the 2.2 is the size of the hail in inches. Now this one's quite obvious, but each of these little bolts here is a lightning strike. And again, an obvious one, this will be a gas station. This icon here is the icon you will see whenever you have a house claimed. Now, there is a house right here, but there is no house icon there since, as a player, I do not own the house. And wherever there's a storm shelter, there is an icon for that as well. And whenever you have a probe placed, that icon will show up wherever your probe is at. And then this giant red blob is your player position, and any other tiny white blob is the position of other players. Now this signifies that there is rotation in the storm, and then there will be other triangles that are colored that will signify the wind speeds of the tornado. Green is less than 80, yellow is less than 100, orange is less than 120, red is less than 140, and pink is greater than 140. Now all these boxes everywhere are tornado warnings. You can right-click anywhere inside a tornado warning and the EAS text will pop up. But I'm not going to read it out loud because it's kind of useless except for one part, which is right here, and often the 3rd paragraph thing down, and it will tell you how fast the tornado is moving, or the storm in general. This particular one is moving at 40 miles an hour. Every red box is a tornado warning, every yellow box is a severe thunderstorm warning, and now the important ones are PDS warnings and tornado emergencies. However, you must know there is a difference between them. A normal PDS warning will just be a pink line with a black outline. However, a tornado emergency will look different. It is a black line with a pink outline, with a very, very thick pink outline, I should add. And I see people getting PDS warnings and tornado emergencies confused all the time, so it's very important for you to know that. Now, I feel like this is very important, but it's probably pretty obvious as well. The shield-looking icons are interstates, and there's only one interstate on the entire map, which is Interstate 57. The yellow squares with black rectangles are state roads, which are probably great route options for you. And then the little pentagon symbols are county roads, which might be great and might be kind of terrible for routes oftentimes. And these really thin red lines that you see here are the county lines. Now you might see that there are different colored roads. Now there are some paved roads that are just different colors. Like for example, there's blue here, there's gray here, and on other spots of the map there is like a tan color and a black color. Those are all paved roads. This dirty brown color is all the dirt roads. You should try to avoid taking dirt roads as much as possible. In some spots of the map there are also these white roads. Those are also paved. And then in some parts of the map you can see these tan roads that are kind of separate from the dirt roads. Those are also paved roads. You don't have to worry about them. Now down here in this little menu, it will tell you the current time of day, the time left until the radar is going to update. You can change which markers that you want to have on, like interstate signs, state route signs, county road signs, skywarn reports, and damage assessments. If you don't know where anyone is, you can highlight a player by clicking their name, or if you don't know where they are, you can search their name. And you can click their name and it will take you to the player's location on the map. The measurement tool is self-explanatory, but if you have this selected, you can click one point, drag it to another and click again, and you can turn it back off and see how wide something is. And then probably a really important part for knowing, like, if you actually did get a record, is the tornado tracks. There are often multiple tornadoes in the day. In this case, there's currently 6, and about to be a 7th. You can click on each tornado track, and it will show you where each tornado tracked through. And if you're curious of how wide something is, you don't have to use the measurement tool. You can just highlight over the tornado track, and it will tell you the track length, which happens to be 2.3 miles here, max funnel width, which is 1,694 feet here, and the max wind field width, which is 1.44 miles. Now, one thing I think you should know is, in Twisted, a mile is 4,050 feet, and not 5,280 feet like it is in real life. Now, that's all I've got for this beginner's guide, and if you've been playing Twisted for a little bit, you probably already know what this is, and you're probably just watching this to see, oh, is this guy good? Does he really know what he's talking about? Or is it another one of those stupid ones? But if you are new to Twisted, I hope this helped you out a lot. And that'll be it for this one. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.